Don't let your toes hang off the bed. Perhaps you've heard the stories of people who don't like to sleep with their feet hanging off the bed. The thing is, just like most stories, there is truth to it. I know I'm one of those people that don't like to sleep with my feet hanging off the bed. In fact, since the night it happened, I sleep with my feet tucked in under a blanket and my back facing the wall, and I have a good reason. I was 10 years old and we had recently moved into a new house. My parents would always talk about what a steal the house was. They even joked that maybe someone had been murdered there, although there was no record of anything like that. We had just started to settle in when I started feeling really uneasy at night when I would go to bed. There was nothing I could tell my mom or dad about. Nothing specifically scary happened. It was just a really creepy feeling. The normal sounds of the house started to sound sinister. They started to sound like they were coming closer to me while I slept. And the darkness was especially dark. My parents said that we would be able to update my room. They were actually going to buy me a new and bigger bed. In the meantime, I was stuck sleeping on my old bed, a tiny worn-out hand-me-down that was too small and creaked every time I moved. It first started on a Monday. It was a night I will never forget. I've never had anything happen to me in the past that would cause me to make sure to fall asleep without my feet hanging off the bed. And sure enough, that night, I fell asleep with all 10 toes hanging just off the edge of that old creaky bed. Sometime in the night, I was woken up by my toes being pinched. The pinching wasn't super painful, but it was really weird. I did what anyone would do and quickly curled, brought my feet up from off the edge of the bed. I looked at my toes in the semi-darkness, and they looked like they were fine. I told myself I was just imagining things. I told myself to be brave. What could be lurking in my room? The next morning, I woke up and looked at my toes again, and everything looked okay. I did what any 10-year-old would have done and just went on with my day. I went to school and hung out with my friends. I forgot the whole thing. That night when I went to bed, I didn't even think about keeping my toes from hanging off. I didn't even think about keeping myself safe. Then it happened again, the same pinching feeling as before. But it was even worse this time. I felt it more like a nibble, like tiny sharp teeth taking a little bite of my toes. I did the same thing and whipped up my toes for inspection. This time I noticed a strange spot forming on the tip of my toes. I figured it must be a spider or just some bug, and went back to bed making sure to tuck my feet in under the blankets. But I couldn't control what I did while I slept. I just started to stretch out on that too small old bed. I was sleeping deeply when I was jolted awake by sharp pains in my feet. This time, when I inspected my toes, there was something that was obviously more than just a spider bite. Each of my toes, except the pinkies, had small cuts made on the top, and they were dripping bright red blood. The worst thing was, I felt like something was moving around inside of my feet. Something had gone into me through the cuts that were made in my toes. I was frantic and wanted to cry out, but I found that I couldn't. I noticed that floating in the blood oozing out of my toes was a tiny bug. There were hundreds of them running around inside of my foot and then scurrying out through the cuts in my toes. They proceeded to flow on the trickle of my blood coming out of my toes and drop to the floor, just to form a straight line and head to the corner of my room. As horrified as I was, I couldn't stop my eyes from following that row of bloody bugs. That's when I saw him. He was about the size of a gnome, but there was nothing friendly about the sinister red eyes he had that glowed in the darkness of my room. He wasn't moving, just staring directly at me as the small bloody bugs crawled towards the creepy figure that appeared to be their master. As soon as I locked eyes with the small demon-like doll, he began to laugh as he slowly and awkwardly made his way to my partially open closet door. A closet door I was sure I had closed before I went to bed. Once he was fully inside my closet, the creepy thing peeked out and laughed one more sinister laugh before disappearing into the closet, the trail of bloody bugs following behind. As soon as he was gone, I found my voice again, and I let out the loudest scream I could. I screamed until my parents ran into the room. My mom searched the room, while my dad tried to comfort me. The blood stained my sheets, the floor, and left its trail to the closet. But they found no sign of the creepy, red-eyed doll. My parents took me to the hospital where I had to get 20 stitches. The doctor said the cuts were the exact length and width on each of my toes. I was never visited by the invasive bugs again, and the only time I ever saw the creepy, red-eyed doll was in my nightmares. Sometimes during the safety of the daylight, I wonder what he was, and why did he send his army of bugs to invade my feet? I guess I'll never know. But what I do know is that I will never let my toes hang off the bed again.